The evening set heavy over Sulphur. Captain Jack Hawkins leaned back in the chair on his front porch, boots set flat on the worn boards, a folded newspaper resting across his lap. The air held the kind of stillness that came after a long day of heat. No wind, no movement, just the low hum of insects beginning their work. He had been reading about it for several days now. At first, it had been a brief column buried low in the paper while he was still in Texarkana. Another missing person somewhere down in McCurtain County near Broken Bow. The kind of story that appeared often enough in rural Oklahoma and just as often faded without resolution. But it hadn't faded. There had been another report, and then another. Hikers, campers, a young man who had taken a job for the summer. People who had simply stepped off a trail or out of a cabin and failed to return. No signs of struggle, no clear direction of travel, just absence. The newspaper had begun to give it more space. Somewhere in the middle of the reporting, the word Hochatown started appearing with increased frequency, as if the place itself had become part of the story. Hawk folded the paper once more, setting it beside him. He had no intention of getting involved, not this time. The phone rang. He let it go once, then twice. On the third ring, he reached over and picked it up. Hawkins. There was a pause on the line, the kind that carried recognition before words. Hawk, this is Samuel Keel. Hawk sat forward slightly. The Keel name didn't need explanation. It carried weight, old weight, within the Chickasaw Nation. He had known the family all his life, in the way people know one another in small overlapping circles that extend across generations. Yes, sir, Hawk said. I know who this is. Another pause, longer this time. It's my grandson, Keel said. He went down to Broken Bow, Hochatown area. Took some work down there. Said he'd be back in a week. Hawk didn't say anything. He hasn't come home. The words settled into the space between them. We've spoken to local authorities, Keel continued, and to the nation. They're doing what they can, but... He let the sentence trail off. I was hoping you might be willing to take a look. Just see what you see. Hawk looked out toward the west, where the last light was slipping down behind the trees. He had come back to Sulphur to be still. Yes, sir, he said quietly. I'll make some calls. When he hung up, he sat for a moment without moving. Then he reached for his phone again and dialed a number he knew by memory. Captain Fraser answered on the second ring. Hawk, what's going on down in Hochatown? Fraser let out a breath that sounded more like relief than surprise. I was wondering when you were going to call. Sounds like you've got a situation. We've got more than a situation, Fraser said. We've got a pattern and no explanation. My people are stretched thin trying to keep up with it. Hawk nodded to himself. You want me to come down? I'd appreciate it, Fraser said. Officially, unofficially, however you want to look at it. Just get off that porch and come take a look. There was a brief pause. Then Fraser added almost as an afterthought. You been hearing about the Bigfoot sightings down here? Hawk allowed himself a faint smile. Everybody in Oklahoma's heard about Bigfoot. They've got signs out along the road now, Fraser said. Silhouettes, tracks, tourists eating it up. I don't imagine that has anything to do with this. No, Fraser said. Neither do I. Hawk looked back out across the darkening yard. I'll head down in the morning. Good, Fraser said. We'll be ready. The line went quiet. Hawk set the phone down and reached for the newspaper again, but he didn't open it. The stillness of the evening had changed. Somewhere far to the southeast, beyond the hills and timbers, something had begun to pull, and he already knew he wasn't going to ignore it.